It was a story that came out of nowhere. Former Speaker of the House, Denny Hastert, was indicted on all sorts of charges. Well, yesterday he was in a courthouse in Chicago. ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, joins us to talk all about it. Good morning, Brian Ross.
Good morning to you.
What did we learn new about the indictment yesterday now that he went to court?
To be honest, not a heck of a lot, other than he continues to be silent about the allegations against him. And it's hard to tell what his plans are in terms of how he'll handle the strategy for his potential trial, but he also appeared to be very much a broken man. He was no longer surrounded by bodyguards and all the trappings he had of power, just him and a couple of lawyers and a mob of photographers outside the Chicago Federal Courthouse.
A lot of people are bringing up the idea of they don't exactly know what he did wrong. He wasn't charged with any crime except for lying to the feds about a structured settlement outside of court.
Right. It is a crime to take money out in a way to avoid reporting the withdrawal of more than $10,000 in cash. And this was a law primarily designed to go against the big drug organizations. The law requires you to report transactions in cash of over $10,000. And the drug guys figured out if they took out $9,500 each time, they could get around it. It was called smurfing. They had people, kind of low-level people, going in and taking out the cash. So they passed a law against it, and that's exactly what tripped up Denny Hastert. He had made a couple of withdrawals of $50,000. The bank asked him about it because they reported it, and then he began to take out transactions just under the $10,000 limit, a lot of them. And the feds caught on to it, and they've got the bank record, so there's no doubt he did it. And then when they asked him about it, he said, well, I did it because I wanted the cash. I didn't trust the U.S. banking system, which they say was a lie.
But again, what's interesting is when the bad guys do it to pay off the terrorists or the drug kingpins, they're using that money illegally. He wasn't necessarily using the money illegally, or at least that's not what they're charging. He entered into some agreement with somebody, whether or not that was illegal. They're not charging him with that. They're charging him.
That's true.
Yeah.
But what their argument is, I think, will be that he used that money to hide past misconduct that would have been illegal at the time. Certainly, sexual abuse. A high school coach having sex with one of his team members would be illegal at the time, and that's why it's important for the feds to establish the misconduct as the underlying cause of these transactions. But you put your finger right on the issue that certainly his lawyers will try to exploit.
Did we learn anything else about individual A, the one he was paying off?
No. He is a mystery. We know he's a resident of Yorkville, the town where Hastert was a coach, and that he's lived there all his life. We've had lots of leads and suggestions about who it might be, and had a fair number of people hang up on us when we tried to talk to him about it. And we've gone to the doors, and we've got some leads, we've got some thoughts about it, but at this point, nothing further to report.
The other interesting thing about all this, Brian Ross, is that supposedly Denny Hastert has only paid a portion of this $3.5 million payoff. The individual A no longer gets the rest of his money.
Right. He got cheated out of 1.8. Hastert has paid him 1.7. There was more than half still to go, and the FBI got onto it. So if nothing else, Hastert saved himself some money, but he bought himself one heck of a problem.
What happens next?
No trial date's been set, and there's an issue with whether the judge will continue on the case. Turns out the judge has contributed in the past to Republicans and to Hastert. So he told both sides yesterday that if either side wants to bounce him off the case, they're welcome to do that. He gave him until tomorrow to do that. And then after that, if he's going to be the presiding judge, we'll start to get information about the scheduling, how the process will proceed and when a trial date would be set. Hastert does face 10 years in prison, and it's very rare, even in a plea bargain, that when somebody had such a position of trust, the federal government almost always insists on some jail time, even in a plea deal.
What's interesting about this is Dennis Hastert's camp lack of anything coming from them. No surrogates out there defending his point of view. No spinning of the media. Nothing. Lawyers not going to the microphone. It's sort of shocking, Brian Ross.
It is. He's become radioactive in the political world. You can find supporters in Yorkville with people who say, I just can't believe it. He's a nice guy. But, of course, that's generally the case. People thought that, Sandusky at Penn State was a great guy until they learned otherwise. These kinds of acts between an adult and a child are, well structured, groomed so that nobody knows. And they come to get the victim to feel like he's guilty too, and that's how they keep it quiet.
And they ultimately picked Denny Hastert to become Speaker of the House because they thought he was the best person to have no scandals and no skeletons in his closet.
You are right. Scandal-proof right after Gingrich and Livingston and all that's going on at that time. He seemed like the perfect solution to the problem. And now his legacy, I would say, is very much in tatters.
Brian Ross, ABC News chief investigative correspondent in Chicago, covering the Dennis Hastert story. Brian Ross, thanks for checking in.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you.
You got it. 727 here, Big 550 KTRS. Boy, when he calls him a broken man, you see the video of him walking in and out.
He just looks much older than
and it's a great description Brian Ross gives of a broken man, hunched over, not looking anybody in the eye. A broken man. But again, I want people to understand that all of the sexual allegations are just that. Allegations from either, this woman who's talked about her brother.
Who's deceased,
and rumors about this individual A. The only thing he's charged with is lying about a structured settlement he agreed to pay with a man. If I agree to pay you $3 million for whatever reason, and I don't want the feds to know about it, I'm not doing anything illegal with you. But the feds are going to charge him with trying to keep quiet a secret settlement I have with you. Seems like it's an awful long way to go. For that, they're not charging him with anything sexual and or inappropriate with a student years ago. It's just an interesting ripple in the law. 728 here, Big 550, KTRS. Listen.